All right, Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson, but I'm gonna play a little bit of this video. Salakia.
Russian visiting icons, my commentary.
So this is Jake right here. He highlights a lot of Jake's, a lot of the history when the so-called Dark Ages and just other times with when Jake was in rulership, the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans, the Israelites was in rulership for 1,000 years in Europe. So Europe was not, all so-called white people. It was a melting pot like it is in the United States. So that's what you don't know. That's the history that you have not been taught. And most Jakes, when they visualize the so-called Europe, which is Europe is new speech, it's really that's what really Asia that they relabeled Europe, right? So there's new speech confusion. But as you what you know as Europe was ruled by so-called black men, right, for 1,000 years and in different other times as well. So when most Jakes visualize so-called Europe, they visualize it being so-called only white people only. That's so-called white people, right? And that's a lie. This happened later on in history, around the 16th century, give or take. That this is when the so-called white race, the Edomites, came back into power, right, and started to put Jake into slavery and take over those lands. But those lands was originally inhabited by so-called black people, different shades of brown skinned people, right? So let me play some of this video. So this is the history that you don't know, and that's why they gave you the narrative in history, right? And history is all fabricated, The history that they gave you is so-called Africans, so Africans, all right? And then you came over here on slave ships, and that's it. You just was nothing but slaves, and that's the end of your history, and that's nothing but a lie. There's no such thing as Africans. That's new speech. These are Hamites that sold Israelites into captivity, right? So two different nation of people, even though they look similar in appearance. Here's some of this.
These are parts 1, 2, and 3, but I've did them all in compilation in one big video here for you guys to view if you guys don't want to watch parts like that. Or you can watch the slideshow compilation where I showcase these images.
Matter of fact, give me 1 second. Let me speed it up.
So we see images like these depicting Christ, saints, the angels.
Let's go here.
I've shown this one a lot. As we can see just from this one, we see the so-called black man looking regal, golden earrings, silver chain, golden chalice, holding the insignia of the Holy Roman Empire. And yes, so-called black people ruled over the Holy Roman Empire. Yes, you heard me correctly. As you can see,
so you had something. There's a lot of history that you don't know about. You had something called the pagan Roman Empire, and then you have something that's called the Holy Roman Empire, right? So the pagan Roman Empire was ruled by Edomites, and then around 325 A.D., give or take, you had Constantine come in. He was a so-called black man, but they got him portrayed in all Google and all over the internet as a so-called white man. But when you do your further digging, Constantine was an Israelite, right? He was a so-called black man, and you had a series of so-called black emperors, right, that ruled Europe, right, the Holy Roman Empire, right, in various parts of Europe, so-called Europe, right, for over 1,000 years, well beyond that. So this is history that our people don't know. So let me play more of this.
golden rings, the sword, everything. Once again, whenever you hear the term Saint Maurice, it's a lie. So another narrative they may concoct, or they will concoct, I should say, which is the obvious. They're going to tell you that these are just slaves. But as you can see, we see so...
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a lesson on that movie Gladiator 2 that's coming out, and a lot of Edomites pissed off because they devils. You know what I'm saying? They are very ignorant, they'll call you ignorant, but the Edomites, the common Edomite is ignorant. They don't know nothing about history. They just know what they've been spoon fed through the fake history. But that's why they mad about Denzel playing that role, because they don't understand that the role that Denzel was playing, that was a real so-called black man emperor at that time, right? His name was Marcius, something like that. Like I said, I do a lesson on it going into that, and you had a lot of Edomites pissed off about the trailer of the movie and the soundtrack, and they go to show you the ignorance of these so-called white people. That goes to show you that this racism ain't went nowhere, right? This your supervisor on your job. This your coworker that you cozy with, right? You buddy with. They all hate you behind your back, and that's what Jake don't get, because Jake is too simple, right? People are gullible, right? And they don't know that these they enemies, and the enemies to laugh in their face, but yet stab them in the back, right? And as you seeing in this presentation right here, they got crowns on their head. These not no fucking slaves, right? But that's the white supremacy and the hatred that they have for you when they say things like this. And a lot of these Edomites are delusional, just like Jake is delusional.
So-called black people looking prestigious and looking regal. We see so-called black people with crowns on their head, ordained in jewelry, just from these arms alone. And don't worry, I'm going to show more of them. As you can see, golden necklace, golden crowns, golden earrings, looking prestigious, looking regal, looking royal. As I said, only kings, queens, lords, dukes wear crowns, rulers wear crowns, slaves don't wear crowns. So they may take it a step further, because so-called black people are looking regal.
As a matter of fact, let me grab my book real quick. This is Nature. Slovakia. Nature knows no color line. Right now. Right now I have done lessons in this book, but I'm gonna go back into this book and just go do some lessons out of it, because it's a lot of vast amount of information that our people don't know. They have no clue of this. When they think about so-called Europe, they just think about a whitewash in their mind. They don't know that we rule. And that's why they gave you the narrative, so they can, right, subjugate you in your mind, because that was a part of them subjugating you, is lying to you about everything and telling you who they wanted you to be, not telling you who you were. That's why they gave you the false narrative that you was a so-called African, which African is a Latin word that comes from the so-called Romans, the so-called Edomite, meaning Edomites, that relabeled that continent so-called Africa, right? That landmass so-called Africa. That wasn't its original name, but the average person don't know that, because the average person is in complete ignorance. Let me grab a scripture real quick. But it's a time that our people come out of ignorance, stupidity, and this being lost and not knowing things. You have to be studious, right? So let me get my hardcover Bible, right? Isaiah 60:2. It says, "For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. And the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee." Right? So this darkness represents ignorance. It's covered this earth, especially in the Babylon. These people are about ignorant as you can possibly be, unknowledgeable, and they unlearned on a lot of things. And these people, if they get fueled off TikTok and Doritos, right, that's they fix. But these people have no sense of history, true history. In any kind of our history, the so-called white race is going to dismiss it as we was just slaves. And that goes to show you that hatred that you jakes don't quite understand, right? So yeah, that's let me see where else I'm gonna go with this. But the Bible is your history book, and that's what Jake don't understand. Right? They think it's just a so-called white man book, and they think King James was a so-called white man. King James was a so-called black man. He was an Israelite, and that's, like I said, that's a lot of history that you don't know. Pay more of this.
These family crests, they may go with the narrative and say that these are exotic slaves. So you may be asking to yourself, what the heck is an exotic slave? Basically, to make make a long story short, but in layman terms, white people made memorabilia, jewelry, statues, relics, rings of their slaves. These are the lies and narratives they're going to come up with, especially with things like these. You see, once again, these are cameos on jewelry. They're going to...
Right, so let's go in this Nature Knows No Color Line book. Like I say, this doing this off the rip, you know, nothing that was planned. Page 72, it says Moor, the race. So when you hear the word Moors, you know they'll say the Moors ruled for, you know, over 700 years. But let's break down this word Moor, because you had a sector of the Israelites that had converted over to Islam, and you had some that was keeping the statute laws and commandments. It says Moor, the race. It occurs in the European heraldry, always means Negro, Moorhead. So when you will hear the word Moor, Jake associate that with the so-called Moors they know today. But the word Moor, that's why you got to go into the true meaning of words. It just means so-called black or Negro. It says for the head of a so-called black or Negro man. That's what the word Moor means. So when you go into the history, the so-called Moors ruled all over Spain. You had the Salakia, trying to think, so much going on. Spain, you had the flank on Morocco, and you go all the way up into different parts of so-called Europe. And then you had the, you know, Israelites was ruling all over, and you had some Israelites, and you had some Hamitic, the Hamites they came up with the Islam thing. They had converted into Islam. Like Jake is converted over to Islam today, right? They don't even know what the word Islam means, but they call themselves Muslim. They don't know what the word Muslim means, right? So, matter of fact, let's do this. I'm all over. So we're going to go with what the word Islam actually means. So nothing new is under the sun. Jake converted to Islam back then. Like Jake converted to Islam in today's time. Like, that's why you have Muhammad Ali's, you know, so on and so forth. Let's go to the word Islam. So the word Islam, it just means submission, right? Okay, we're gonna go to the word Muslim. But Jake don't know that. Salakia. Muslim. Salakia. Okay, so when you go into the word Muslim, let me see if I can get some. All right, Salakia. It says Muslim one. It said one who submits to God, right? They're not really giving me too much, but yeah, going back into this false religion, right? It says submits to God, right? Which that's not the Most High name. God is a title, but it be many gods, right? You have that's really the word God is a pagan word. His true name is Yahweh, right? But the world know him as God, which is a false entity, right? So Yahweh and Yahweh Shah will be so-called black men, and this is not common knowledge. But you bring this up to a so-called white person, they'll say we crazy. They'll say it's hate speech that we saying. All that is just to deflect from the true history so they can feel good about their false so-called white supremacy, right? Think I'm going to call it a lesson or whatever. See you on the next one. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakak Wadash. Shalom.